This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined the Patreon or become a YouTube member. Thank you. If you could, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here on YouTube in video format. Tons of questions to get into. First question comes from RP, who says this: a lot of people are still saying that the Cavs won't make it to the finals this year. Are those people really haters, or do they just not want to see Cleveland in the finals? I think it has to do with the lack of imagination, right? A lot of people, most people, have a hard time envisioning things before they happen, right? Like, for example, when the when the iPhone first came out, hell, you can even say it was with the iPod. When the iPhone first came out, all people could see is how the iPhone was different than what was out there and how that would be a bad thing, right? Go back and look at coverage of the iPhone being released. It's too expensive. It doesn't have a physical keyboard. How are people going to make calls on this thing? This, that, and the third. How are people going to text on this thing? Nobody's going to want to do that. People had a hard time envisioning that the iPhone would be used for the things that it was really, really good for and get better at the things that you didn't think that it wasn't good for. And that allowed a lot of people, Steve Ballmer, I think, is one of the most famous examples of it. If you go look up his quotes of the reaction to the iPhone, and it wasn't uncommon at the time. Like I remember being a kid at that age, like people were like, oh man, who's going to like that? That doesn't make any sense, because they couldn't envision why somebody would want that. Now, to bring this parallel back to the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's similar to that because, hey, people look at this Cavs team and they see all the things that are not similar to other teams that have won the NBA Finals before, right? Oh, they don't have a megastar. Oh, they're not in a big market. This, that, and the third, right? Things that people are used to identify championship contenders. The Cavs aren't really the traditional team in that sense. But if you look at how this team plays, how well they've played throughout the year, I think it's clear to me that this is much different than like a team that wins 60 games like the Atlanta Hawks. I think this is a much different beast than that, more akin to what the Warriors did when they first broke out and what the Kawhi Leonard-led Spurs did not led Spurs, but the Kawhi Leonard Finals MVP Spurs team that beat the Heat. That's what this kind of feels like. So I think it's just a lack of imagination, right? People just aren't used to thinking that Cleveland is a championship contender at anything without LeBron James being associated. People are used to counting out teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and over-relying on teams like the Boston Celtics. And I think that is why the discourse is what it is right now. Next thing comes from Charles, who says, what's our record for each jersey we've worn this season? If you can find out the past 2-3 seasons, that'd be clutch. I feel like the black statement jerseys give us the most wins, maybe because it reminds me of that 2016 championship. Yeah, I don't know what the Cavs record. I don't even think that's a stat that anybody keeps, but it is interesting because it feels like every time the Cavs wear, and I love this jersey that they have, their statement jersey this year. It's like the baby blue, the land jersey. Like, I think that should be a permanent alternative that the Cavs should go to because it's such a beautiful look. But they always play close games than that against teams that they probably shouldn't be playing close games against. Fly on the Wall says, who are you most looking forward to in a first round matchup? Doesn't necessarily have to be the easiest matchup, just the one you find the most entertaining. If we're talking about first round, I think Detroit would be fun. That would be the most interesting matchup, right? JB up against his former team. It seems like there is #real smoke between these two teams. I think that'll lead to a fun series. And I think that'll be a series that'll make sure the Cavs are up to the task of playing playoff basketball. It's going to be a tough series. It's going to be a physical series. It's going to be a lot of trash talk, all kind of stuff, right? And it's still a series that the Cavs can get out of there, I think, in 5 or less games. So, Yeah, I think that'll be a fun first series for him. I think the second round matchup that'll be the most fun for me. I would love to be the team that eliminates the New York Knicks. Me personally would love to do that, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. Steven says, what do you make of the recent dip in Darius Garland's play? I can foresee this becoming a problem in the playoffs. I think y'all just need to let Darius Garland live, man. Like, y'all, every time Darius has a little slump, it becomes like when Donovan has these slumps, which he does very often, it doesn't become a thing like it does when Darius has these slumps, or even like when Evan has like a shooting slump. It doesn't become a thing. Or DeAndre Hunter right now is experiencing a shooting slump. Nobody's like, well, I think he's going to be bad in the playoffs now. Let Darius live. Darius has played well in the playoffs before. He's had a couple of bad games in the playoffs before. I think Darius is going to be Darius in the playoffs, right? I don't think you should expect more than what Darius has put out there in the playoffs, right? He's not going to become a different player, but I don't get why people's expectations of Darius Garland are so low in a playoff setting when he's played well in a playoff setting before. And like, I do believe Darius Garland deserves a lot more respect than he gets from Cavs fans, because if it wasn't for him playing well, we wouldn't be in the position where we would have kept Jared Allen. We wouldn't have been in a position where Evan Mobley joining the team would have led to such a leap. We wouldn't be in a position where we feel like we could go trade for Donovan Mitchell. Like, Darius Garland is one of the main pieces, probably the catalyst to why the Cavs are in the position that they are in today, to be built the way that they're built today. And it seems like at every single step, people want to doubt Darius Garland or try to make it seem like Darius is the weak link on the team, when Darius is one of your strengths, because he's somebody who could be productive for you, even if he's not scoring at an incredibly high clip. And this team doesn't even require Darius Garland to score at a high clip. It just requires him to be a good facilitator of the basketball, get other people involved. Like, yeah, if Darius has 12, but Evan and Jared combined for 40, it don't matter that Darius had 12 because he did his job. Right? Like, just so much energy to jump on Darius Garland when I feel like we should just let Darius live a little bit. I don't know. I feel like y'all be tripping about Darius a lot. Somebody said here, Tyre says here, I'm worried that if Ty Jerome leaves, we will regress heavily. I don't know if heavily would be the right word, because to be fair, we got to give the Cavs player development a ton of credit here, because they've been able to develop a ton of young players. That would also mean a bigger role for DeAndre Hunter, possibly Craig Porter Jr. coming off the bench. Like, it won't be the same. Ty Jerome won't be replaced easily if you have to lose Ty Jerome in an upcoming offseason. Don't get me wrong there. I agree with you 100% on that part. My whole thing is that if Ty does leave, I think the Cavs player development and the fact that they have guys like Dean Wade still, Sam Merrill still, Max Strus still, DeAndre Hunter still, they have plenty of pieces to pivot to on that bench. Jalen Tyson by next year might be a very, very high level contributor for this team off the bench, right? Like, the signs are there that he could be pretty solid for you sooner than later. So, yeah, losing Ty will hurt. Do I think that would change the Cavs' fortunes to be like a much worse team? No, but do I think that changes the Cavs' ceiling a little bit if they don't have Ty playing at the level that he is? Yeah, I do, because Ty's a huge part of like what gives you that second wind that can just straight up overwhelm teams to the point to where you can have your star players play bad and still win games against really, really good teams. So, there's a balance there. Tom says, what is the concern level for Darius Garland? Team's slow start, I think, are directed to Darius not making shots he usually makes since that push in the back by Cat, hard fall in the Knicks game. Cavs said hips, DG might have had a concussion the way his head hit the floor. Well, I mean, if he doesn't have a concussion, because they would have reported that he missed time anyways. So I don't think he has a concussion. That's just misinformation. I mean, the truth is that, hey, if he got hurt a little bit, then maybe that's affecting his game a little bit. it might just be that he's just not making shots right now, right? Like sometimes that happens. Darius is a little bit streaky, right? He's going to have his good weeks. He's going to have his bad weeks. When he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. And I think that's why, again, like I stated earlier, it's important that Darius is able to bring something to the table, even if his shot isn't falling. And I think his growing ability to finish at the rim is something that's really beneficial. And I think he needs to rely on that more on days where his shooting just isn't up to where it needs to be. I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill with Darius, right? I don't think this has to do with the injury or anything. I just think this is just one of those couple of weeks where Darius just isn't making the shots at the same level that you would like Darius to make them at. Like, that's just, he's streaky. Some weeks he's hot, some weeks he's not. And I think he's able to make up for that with his ability to do other things. So, no, I'm not too concerned about it. I think we're kind of making a bit much out of it, and we tend to have this when it comes to Darius. The game versus Boston. Boston attacked Garland a lot. How will the Cavs adjust in the playoffs? I think the Cavs are fine if that's how Boston wants to try to win, right? Because what they do not want is for Boston to make a bunch of threes and be super hot with their role players on kickouts, right? They want Jason Tatum to feel like he has to take those crazy shots. And they're going to bet on the fact that Jason Tatum is not going to make those crazy shots enough to beat you in a 7-game series. And that's been the bet against Boston, right? Yeah, but Jason Tatum will give you 2 games in a 7-game series where he won't make them crazy shots. But he's going to give you more games where he doesn't. And I think that's just the gamble, right? Let Darius go on there. Hopefully Darius can be sticky on defense. And then if Darius is getting attacked and beaten on offense a ton, he just needs to be super effective. He needs to be effective on offense that game. If he can't be effective, then you're going to sub him out, put Ty Jerome in, and make life a little bit more difficult for Tatum on the defensive end, which is probably going to mean that they're going to switch to Jared Allen. And I'm fine with Jared Allen forcing him to try to make those very difficult 1-foot middies that sometimes he makes, sometimes he doesn't, right? Like I think that's the strategy there. All right. Next question comes from Drake, who says, how concerned are you with the lack of backup big going into the playoffs, and what do you think of the lineups will look like if either well, we've seen this, right? We've seen Mobley be out. We've seen Jared Allen be out, and we know what the Cavs are going to do. They're going to play Dean Wade a little bit more. Dean Wade's their backup big. DeAndre Hunter's their backup big. It's just they don't have a backup center, but I think they're okay with just having that be the plan. They have 2 centers in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. If one of those guys are out, then the other guy plays the center, and then they bring up Dean or DeAndre to play the power forward position. So I think that's their solution there. And honestly, it's a pretty decent solution as far as backup bigs go. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.